Good morning, all. It's 9:29. We are ready to start the day's proceedings. Please make sure that your cell phones are off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Ms. Sildo. I cannot help but say that you are confusing me. Because yesterday I was surprised to see you here. Now you are back where you usually are. Good morning. Good morning, General.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and I apologize for the confusion I saw. But as the Commissioners, I'm sure by now are no doubt aware, this is my preferred position. I am dictated to by others when I don't have control over where I sit. Chair, morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Chair and Commissioners, we proceed today with General Flynn, and I shall be holding fort today. Thank you.
That's
morning,
important.
General.
Good morning, Advocate Selu.
General, yesterday during your testimony, some issues arose, I think, from the commissioners, and I thought it appropriate to perhaps provide fuller clarity on the questions on the answers you had provided to the questions posed. So I suggest that before we deal with the remainder of your statement, we take a step back and we try and address the questions in full that arose. And thereafter, we will get back to your statement. Would that be appropriate?
Indeed, Commissioners.
Before we do so then, Commissioners, you recall that yesterday General Flynn had indicated that he would be preparing a supplementary statement. That statement has been prepared and your files have been duly updated. It is the last item in your current files. Now, General, let's turn then to your supplementary statement and formally place it on record. We will deal with the contents thereof in the fullness of time. Please turn to the last item in your file. There is a statement there marked supplementary statement of Hendrik Franz Flynn. It's a 7-page document. And if you go to page 7, it's dated even date, and it bears a signature. Do you confirm that's your signature?
Indeed, Commissioners.
And you confirm the correctness of this supplementary statement and you stand by its contents?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Thank you, General. Chair and Commissioners, if then it may be admitted, we will come back to the issue of the supplementary. For the moment, let's go back to your original statement, your first statement. And in this regard, I would like to draw your attention to, I suggest we first deal with paragraph 50. At paragraph 50, you point out that the FSL did not attend the scene on 22nd June 2022 at the harbor. And the reason advanced was that FSL declined to do so because it was not a clan lab scenario, meaning it was not a clandestine drug laboratory. My question is, that term seems to refer to laboratory. And the scene as we had it at the Ahaba was not a laboratory case. why then is the clan lab scenario of relevance to whether or not FSL could attend the scene?
Commissioners, it became relevant because Colonel Jacob indicated that he requested their presence at the scene and they denied it. So there was no need to call them because even the protocol direct that LCRC or the local criminal record center attend to normal drug seizures and not the forensic science laboratory.
So is it your testimony then that FSL in the circumstances was the wrong entity to make contact with?
Indeed, Commissioners.
And the entity that ought to have been made contact with is the LCRC?
That's correct, Commissioners.
To your knowledge, was LCRC contacted by the investigators in this case on the day in question at the harbour?
I do not have knowledge of that, Commissioners.
You don't, did you say knowledge or record?
I do not have knowledge of that.
Knowledge of that. Thank you. The second issue is at your paragraph 51. And here you are dealing with the question of the requirement that the exhibits be sealed at the crime scene and not after they have been transported to Port Shepstone. You see, it's your last sentence in paragraph 51. I'm going to, and commissioners, we now have 2 SAP 13s, and I think this would assist with a question posed by Commissioner Khumalo yesterday. I'll call the one the Isipingo SAP 13. And then we have the Port Shepstone SAP 13. Currently, hearing my voice back to me is rather weird. Currently, they are running prints and they will be uploading. In order for General Flynn to provide the requisite clarity on the issue, it is necessary that they be at hand. So if you allow me, I will park this until those documents are at hand, then he can talk us through them. And then Commissioner Khumalo will have his response, I trust. Thank you. In the meantime, then, I would invite us, General, to deal with the requirements in terms of the instruction notes and the legislation insofar as it is relevant on this matter. And then we will look at the SAP 13s themselves to determine whether or not they complied. I would suggest for that purpose then we go to your annexure HH2. Is it HFF2? HFF2. And I'm going to request your assistance to help us understand the requirements of HFF2. For the record, that is the National Instruction 8 of 2017, titled Property and Exhibit Management. I would like us to perhaps start at page 73. I don't know how you normally refer to whether I'm at 4. Is that a part 4? Is that a clause 4? Is that item 4? How do you normally refer to it? So,
paragraph 4.
Paragraph 4, okay. Then let's start at your paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 speaks to or regulates the completion of SAP 13 registers when exhibits are handed in at the CSC. I think firstly, let's understand what is the CSC, and please, in that explanation, contrast it with what we generally understand to be a police station, if there is a difference.
Commissioners, the CSC, as I explained yesterday, is the Community Service Center or the Charge Office. And that's the...
I sometimes wonder why these names have been changed because they serve to confuse us.
And that's the heartbeat of the police station. That's where all the activities start, and that is where the register is kept to enter exhibits into. So it's part of the police station, to answer Advocate Sello.
Oh, okay. So it's part of the police station. So if I say the SAP 13 is found at a police station, that would be inclusive of a CSC.
Indeed, Commissioners.
And then paragraph 4, you said you call them paragraphs. Please read sub 4 into the record. 4 sub 4.
Oh, sub 4.
Yes.
All property and exhibits seized must be entered in the SAP 13 register of the relevant police station where the crime was committed or where the property was found, and then transferred to the relevant unit and entered in the SAP 13 of the relevant unit.
A couple of questions from me on that. How should we understand the requirement that all property and exhibits seized must be entered into the SAP 13 register of the relevant police station where the crime was committed? Does that mean each and every item must be registered? Does that mean a generic description of the exhibit must be given? How should the Commission interpret that requirement?
Commissioners, it's expected of police officers entering exhibits into the SAP 13 to be specific and complete. It means that exhibit seal numbers must, for instance, be entered. If there's a serial number on exhibits, that needs to be entered. If it's cash that's being handed in, the serial numbers of the cash need to be entered. So it needs to be a very comprehensive and complete entry that's being made there.
And if we then take it to the second, what I'll call the second SAP 13 register, which is the receiving police station, must the same exercise be undertaken?
That is correct, Commissioners. That's when exhibits are transferred to another station.
Okay. Now then, I would like us to go to paragraph 7, as you're helping us understand.
Maybe before you do that, Mr.
Yes,
just to clear this. General, where it says to the relevant unit, in this case, the relevant unit would have been the DPCI, in the case that we are dealing with.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. To your response to Commissioner Baloyi's question, I would like you to flag it, because as we work through this document, we will have to revisit that answer for clarity, okay? But in the meantime, I would like us to then go to paragraph 7 at page 74. And at paragraph 7, which is headed Property in Temporary Storage Facilities in the CSC, I take it then police station, as you explained. And it requires that all property entered in the SAPS 13 must be locked in a temporary storage facility at CSC, where they must be kept safely until handed over to the station commander or exhibit official. In the case of the Port Shepstone seizure and the SAP entry at Isipingo, who would have at the time been the exhibit official?
Warrant Officer Perumal, Commissioners.
So Warrant Officer Perumal is our exhibit official.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Then I invite us to paragraph 8. You had touched on this briefly. Paragraph 8 regulates the transfer of exhibits from one police station to another. Part 1 or sub 1 of paragraph 8, it states that the transfer document SAP 13 sub G is completed by the sub 13 official in all instances where exhibits are transferred from one police station to another or between sub 13 stores. Would it be logical for us to expect to obtain an SAP 13 sub G from Isipingo police station in regard to the Port Shepstone seizure?
That's correct, Commissioners, because it's a requirement.
And part 2 deals with the completion of their transfer document. Is this a separate document from the SAP 13 book that is completed? Is it a standalone document, or is it part of the SAP 13, I'll call it a book, where various entries are made? What exactly is a transfer document?
Commissioners, it is a separate document. It does not form part of the actual register where the exhibits are entered into.
So, when we then turn to sub 3, sub 3, as I understand it, lists the information that must be provided in this separate document that is called the transfer document. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And at sub 5, a similar requirement, but this time for the receiving station. So sub 3 regulates the requirement for a transfer document by the transferring station. In our instance, in this particular case, that would be Isipingo police station. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Sub 5 regulates the requirements for a transfer document by the receiving station. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
So, and basically the requirements are the same. Have you said you haven't seen this transfer document. Have you seen any document that provides the detail required in sub 3? And
No.
I'm not calling it a transfer document for a moment, but any document that has captured the requirements of sub 3A to I.
No, I'm not aware of any such documents, Commissioners.
And similarly then, am I correct to assume that you haven't seen in respect of a document contemplated in sub 5, A to H?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Are you able to express a view then as to the correctness of or compliance of the transfer of these exhibits from Isipingo to Port Shepstone?
There was non-compliance, Commissioners.
Can I try to understand this? In sub 5, what would be the receiving station on the facts of what we are dealing with?
Commissioners, one of two, Port Shepstone Police Station or the DPCI SAP 13 in Port Shepstone.
But was there a transfer to Port Shepstone Police Station?
I believe we are coming to that, Commissioners, but indeed it went to Port Shepstone Police Station and not to the SAP 13 of the Serious Organized Crime Unit at Port Shepstone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And perhaps while we are here, there is what is formally called the Port Shepstone Police Station. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There is a police station in Port Shepstone.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And that is different from the Port Shepstone DPCI offices. Is that not so?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Where what we know happened here is that the transfer, quote unquote, was from Isipingo police station to Port Shepstone offices. And that is where they were stored on the 22nd of June, 2022.
Indeed, Commissioners.
Then, if I could invite us then to overleaf at page 60 at paragraph 9. This deals with property dealt with by experts. And I'm interested in sub 1 of that paragraph. It reads, specialized units.
Sorry, you send him back to 60, 76.
76, did I say 60?
Yes, he was going back to 60.
Oh, I do apologize. I guess I just saw the 6 and then added 76 for the record, 76.
Just a very brief observation. At 8.5, is there no need for the description of the exhibits? I see no reference to that there. Of course, you can't change the form, but I'm just asking out of interest. There is reference to that under 383, H, description of exhibits. I would have thought that the person receiving there should be an entry that says description of exhibits again to correspond with what the transferor says.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yes. You might want to raise that with the relevant sections of subs.
Thank you for that observation, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I had then directed us to page 76. And we are dealing with paragraph 9, the first subparagraph, sub 1. And it reads, specialized units resorting under the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, DPCI, and the Division Forensic Services may, with the consent of the Divisional Commissioner or Head, DPCI, keep separate SAP 13 registers to record exhibits. Do you see where I'm reading?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Is the Port Shepstone, are the Port Shepstone DPCI offices an entity contemplated in sub 1? Or is that something completely different?
Commissioners, that will only be an approved SAP 13 if it was approved by the national head of the DPCI. I do not have knowledge on whether...
Before you go further, I'm trying to understand, before we get to the question of the SAP 13, this subparagraph speaks of specialized units resorting under the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, DPCI, and the Division Forensic Services. Now, my question is, Port Shepstone office, DPCI offices, are they the specialized service units that are referred to in this subparagraph?
Indeed, Commissioners.
And then taking it further, that subparagraph tells us that then the DPCI offices in Port Shepstone may keep a separate SAP register, 13 register, to record exhibits with the consent of the divisional head, the divisional commissioner or divisional head, DPCI. The divisional head would, in trying to understand the ranking, would that be the position? Who's the divisional commissioner? Perhaps let me ask that.
Well, from my reading of this paragraph, Commissioners, the divisional commissioner referred to here is the divisional commissioner for forensic services.
Yes.
And then on the part of the DPCI, it is the national head of the DPCI that can approve such a SAP 13 facility or register to be kept.
So in the absence of an approval such as contemplated in sub 1, Port Shepstone DPCI offices cannot retain a sub-13 register.
That's
that
correct.
correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
To your knowledge, have the officers, and that's the Port Shepstone officers, ever been approved to retain such a register?
I do not have knowledge of that, Commissioners.
Now, you recall that Commissioner Khumalo asked you, I'll take a step back to page 75, about the receiving station. And your response, or I think it was Commissioner Balo, your response was that would have been Port Shepstone Police Station. Now we know that the seized cargo was taken to Port Shepstone office, DPCI offices. You inform the commissioners that you are not aware of the officers having been cleared or approved to retain an SAP 13 register. If that's where they went, why then do you conclude that the receiving station in this instance, as in paragraph 8, sub 5, was Port Shepstone Police Station? These are two separate places.
Commissioners,
go ahead.
after the exhibits was booked in and booked out at Isipingu on the 22nd of June 2021, the officers took the exhibits to the Serious Organized Crime Unit Port Shepstone, stored it there in the walk-in safe. And then only on a later date, on the 24th of June, the exhibits were entered into the SAP 13 at Port Shepstone SAPS, whilst it was still, until the burglary and theft, in the walk-in safe in Port Shepstone Organised Crime Unit.
So if I understand you correctly, the exhibits were physically taken to Port Shepstone offices. 2 days later, they were entered into the Port Shepstone Police Station SAP 13. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioners.
If Port Shepstone Police Station was intended as the receiving station, was it not required, therefore, to have taken control of the exhibits before they are entered into the SAP 13 at the police station in Port Shepstone?
That's correct, Commissioners.
But we know that it happened. Do you know whether there was ever a transfer, however temporary, from the DPCI Port Shepstone offices to the police station in Port Shepstone to complete the exercise, the SAP 13 exercise as the receiving station? Do you know?
I'm not aware of such, Commissioners.
Okay. Now, our SAP 13s are now available. Commissioners, there are two documents that have been presented before you. These will be
Handwritten.
Handwritten, yes. They're actually completed forms. There are two of them. These are marked, paginated 193 and 194 as exhibits. There'll be exhibit CJC 193 and CJC 194 respectively. The small one is 193.
193.
193 is the smaller one. For now, I'll call them the small one until the general confirms what they are.
I always rely on the attorneys to
Yes,
sort that out for
indeed.
years. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Chair, it shall be done. It was for purposes of the record. Yes, thank you. General, you have received the two documents that they've just been distributed now, I referred to, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
I would like us to turn our attention to the first. At the top right corner, it is written in manuscript A16. You see that document?
That's correct, Commissioners.
What is it's a two-page document. What is this document?
Commissioners, it is a copy of the SAP 13 at Isipingo Police Station.
Now, we know from evidence tendered thus far that this seizure was registered, was booked in, and subsequently booked out at Isipingo Police Station. Is this the SAP 13 that would have reflected that book-in, book-out process?
That's correct, Commissioners.
If you look at the first page of that document, there is an entry 373 dated 22/06/2021. And in the second column, it indicates a DPCI inquiry number, and then it provides a description. Do you know what that entry is?
Advocate Celio, do you refer to column 3, the entry?
The
column
second
2?
entry on the page, the first seems to be headed 323, item, whatever, entry 372. The second is entry 373.
Oh,
yes,
yes,
373. Rather dyslexic this morning, apologies. Do you see where I am, General?
In column 2, Commissioners, that DPCI inquiry number, it refers to the inquiry file under which this investigation was conducted.
And that was as at the date reflected in the first column, 22/06/2021.
That's correct, Commissioners.
I then want us to move to the third column. And if you could read, if you can make out what's written there, if you could read what's written in this SAP 13.
Commissioners, it is written a 1 and then a bracket, so it's for item 1, and it's just reflecting 541, and then in brackets 541, multiply 1 kilogram brick containing powder suspected to be cocaine.
And again, as you made a correction yesterday, there should have been each somewhere there, because now this suggests that all of this is 1 kg. Yeah.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And I think you identified this as the Isipingo SAP 30 in this document.
That's correct, Commissioners.
When one looks at this document, I do not see any further description as, I think, contemplated by the National Instruction 8 of 2017, that each exhibit must be individually identified in the receiving. No. In the first station where the crime is committed when they enter into the SAP 13. That's the totality of the description of the exhibits. It's inconsistent with the response you gave that each single piece of exhibit has to be individually listed in the SAP 13.
And described.
And described.
Yeah, you would, for instance, if it was properly done, I would have expected to see that there would have been multiple entries, Commissioners, first and foremost. Second to that, there would have been an indication to say 1 forensic exhibit seal bag with seal number 12345 containing 20 suspected bricks of cocaine. And that will complete that entry. And then the second and the third and the fourth. And then all other additional exhibits that might have been seized from a crime scene.
And
what about the description of the containers? I mean, you can't just say a brick, because how does that work? My understanding was that they were wrapped in black or some other form of, because looking at this, it's so easy to swap it for something else, and nobody would know that the exhibits have been swapped for something else. Shouldn't the description of the containers also say, I'm just looking at Chair's constitution. Chair is a big fan of the constitution. Its color is black, and so the photos that we saw yesterday, shouldn't that be part of the description as well?
Indeed, Commissioners. That's why I say all other exhibits ceased from the crime scene. And these are exhibits. The wrappings, the bags in which it was, the additional wrapping around that bags with the carry handles, all of those was then supposed to, after it was, the cocaine was removed from those bags, to also form part of the list of exhibits.
Yeah, I think look at the screen.
That's
That's what I
correct.
had in mind. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So then in response to Commissioner Khumalo's question, each one of those bricks ought to have been listed in this Isipingo SAP 13 and fully described.
Well, since almost all of them are similar, it's
Yes.
basically two types of packaging.
Yes.
Commissioners, that's why I indicated it gets supposed to be packaged correctly at the crime scene, and then you give an explanation of the exhibits that's handed in. So it serves no purpose to go and describe each and every block, because it will be 541 of similar entries. It obviously needs to speak to the chain of custody, and that's why it's important that the seal numbers in which 20 or 15 or 10 blocks are packaged are properly reflected in the register, as well as, and you can see there on the top left-hand side of the photo, that black bags, all of that it's still exhibits, and it needs to be also sealed and properly recorded in the applicable register.
And I think your testimony yesterday was, it is at this juncture, when they are entered into the SAP 13, that they must be sealed in proper forensic evidence bags.
Before you
Yes, Chair.
you deal with it, now that you've taken us back to the photographs, Ms. Sigels
Chair.
Ncube promised to give these photographs and maybe something else as well, I'm not sure now, to give them exhibit numbers. Please do not forget that.
No, indeed, I understand that is
Yes.
underway. And the exhibit number, the two exhibit numbers we provided, CJC 193, 194, have already taken the pictures into consideration.
Okay.
Yes, definitely, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
Okay, I'd say, my General, yesterday I understood you to have testified that at the crime scene, the exhibits must be, and at the bookings police station, they must be entered into the SAP 13 register and placed at the same time in proper evidence bags, sealed and marked and duly marked. Did I understand you correctly?
That is at the crime scene, if conditions permit, obviously, as per the directive, Commissioners.
At the crime scene.
At the crime scene.
So we know that it didn't happen at the crime scene. Instead, they were taken to the Isipingo police station. And that picture we looked at were the exhibits as they were at the Isipingo police station. That is the time they were entered into the SAP 13. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, I want to understand whether after the entry into the SAP 13, is it at this juncture they must be placed in evidence bags and sealed?
No, this was already at the police station. So if they omitted to do it at the crime scene, at the container, at least there was a second bite at the cherry where they could have conducted still proper crime scene management. And even here, it was not done, Commissioners.
So,
Sorry.
yes.
General, are you saying even here at Sipingo, they should, having failed to do it at the crime scene, at this point now at the police station, they should have put them in bags.
Indeed, Commissioner, although on face value what I observed there is that the exhibits were already contaminated, unless the colleagues had gloves on. But it could still have been photographed properly by LCRC, as well as properly sealed in exhibit seal bags. And the exhibits could have been properly reflected in the SAP 13 register. There was no need to just take the exhibits as it was in that state from Isipingo to Port Shepstone, because anything can happen along the way. Some of the exhibits can go missing. And the chain of custody is really not at the required standard where we expect detectives to function at.
Thank you, General. So at least we know from, and if the crime scene had been properly handled, then the exhibits in their respective evidence bags, sealed, duly sealed and marked, would have then been entered into the SAP 13 at Isipingo.
Indeed, Commissioners.
And now we know it didn't happen here, at least if this SAP 13 is to be believed.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Then on the same document, if you go over leaf, there are some entries made there. I just want you to explain to me. I read the first column under 4 as a member who booked these exhibits at Sipingo and references the CHC container at 14 Avenue East. That's the Durban Harbour, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And it is duly signed for. What I'm interested in is the 5th column, the entry in the 5th column. You recall we're having a conversation on regarding the book-in, book-out process. That requires a registration in the first police station, SAP 13, and immediately booked out to another police station where an SAP 13 would be completed. I'm correct? That is the general process.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And now we have dealt with the issue of the transfer documents to take account of that movement from the one police station to another police station. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, yesterday you referenced book in, book out. Must that strictly be from police station to police station, or can it be booked out for other purposes?
The exhibits can obviously and must be booked out to be submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory, Commissioners. So that is also a legitimate reason.
Okay. And if we then look at column 5, the entry there, the second one, I think the book sort of reads across. Highlighted in green and yellow. That is the continuation of the entry regarding these exhibits, you confirm?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Now, if I am reading this properly at column 5, it reads, items taken for analysis and given the date 2021-06-2022. I read that to be the book out process that you spoke of after the book in.
That's correct, Commissioners. That's what column 5 is created for.
And I see that happened, it confirms it happened on the 22nd of June 2021, which is the same day as the date of seizure.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It reflects, obviously, taken for analysis.
I'm interested in the date for the moment, General.
Yes, that's the date of the seizure.
Now, my challenge is, we know after the book out, they went to Port Shepstone DPCI offices. This is the reason provided here is items taken for analysis. Was analysis to be done at the Port Shepstone DPCI offices, or am I misreading what's here?
Commissioners, perhaps just two things that I need to comment on. First and foremost, this entry by one of the detectives that was part of the search and seizure operation referred to in column 5 was supposed to be in column 6, not in column 5. Column 5 is for the station commander or the SAP 13 clerk to acknowledge receipt of the exhibits. That's the first aspect. The second aspect is that clearly this entry is a false entry because the exhibits was never taken for analysis on that date. It's completely misleading because the exhibits went from Isipingo to Port Shepstone and it was never submitted for analysis as depicted here.
Not on that date and not ever.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you, General. Let's then turn to the second document that was distributed today. That will be CJC 194 for the record. If you could briefly inform the commissioners what this document is.
Commissioners, the second document on the top right-hand corner reflects as A3 is a copy of the SAP 13 register of Port Shepstone SAPS, the police station.
And I think earlier you had indicated, and I think that the document bears you out, that these entries were made 2 days after the seizure and after the cargo had been locked up at the Port Shepstone offices. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioners. According to the document, column 1, it's reflected there 2021-06-24, and the reference number at Port Shepstone was 883 for that specific calendar year.
Now, who would bear responsibility for these entries in this document?
Commissioners, the exhibits was entered by Warrant Officer Mpangase.
But if I understood it, Warrant Officer Mpangase is one of the investigating officers. Should the SAP entry not be countersigned by the exhibit official, the official who is responsible for the exhibits at the police station?
Commissioners, if we can perhaps go to the last page
Yes.
of this exhibit. In column 4 under paragraph 4.5, it indicates the signature of Community Service Center member who receives exhibits or the property. And there is a different signature affixed to that column under 4.5 after Warrant Officer Mpangase entered the exhibits into the register.
Indeed. So I'm saying it is that signature, whoever it belongs to, is that person who then becomes the exhibit official and is responsible for these exhibits from that point.
That's correct, Commissioners, but here we have to also take into consideration, again, paragraph 6.1, where Warrant Officer Mpangase, again on the 24th, booked out the exhibits.
Apologies, General, you are ahead of us. We will get to that point. Okay. You recall that we dealt with, in terms of the instruction notes, the transferring station and the receiving station requirements and the transfer documents. Now, you explained that when they are registered in the receiving police station, that police station takes responsibility for the exhibits. And they are entered into that police station's SAP 13. And this is what this document purports to be the Port Shepstone Police Station SAP 13. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And my question, therefore, is if the commissioners were to go to Port Shepstone Police Station to establish who was the official responsible for receiving these exhibits, there has to be somebody identifiable to say, I received them and I signed the SAP 13 form. Am I correct? Is my understanding
That's correct. That's how it's supposed to be working.
Now, from the document before us, are we able to determine who the receiving official at the Port Shepstone Police Station was?
I cannot identify from this document, Commissioners.
And as you rightly say, at the end of that document, just under 4.5, is a signature with no name, no, is it a member number, no date?
No rank.
No rank. Do you have any comments to what we are confronted with?
Well, Commissioners, from a reading of the document, it's clear that this was just an entry into the register at this police station to have a reference number for the exhibits that's been kept at Port Shepstone. According to my knowledge, the actual exhibits was not taken out of the walk-in safe at the unit, taken to Port Shepstone, booked in there, booked out, and taken back again. This is just a paper exercise that was performed here. And that is why Warrant Officer Mpangase immediately again, or directly after he entered it here, on the same date, made the entry, apparently he made the entry under paragraph 6, that the exhibits is taken for investigation.
Taken from the Port Shepstone Police Station in 6.1.
Yes, it reflects items 3.1 to 3.31 taken for investigation. Obviously then from the police station, because the entry is made at Port Shepstone Police Station. So it's incorrect, it's a false entry.
We will get to you say it's Warrant Officer Mpangase's entries under 6.1. I'm still interested in what was happening to record these exhibits as received by Port Shepstone Police Station. As you sit there in the position that you are in, must somebody be held accountable for this entry besides Warrant Officer Mpangase, who at least signs here as the person handing them in? Must the purported receiving person be held responsible and answerable to what exactly was happening here?
Commissioners, it's a difficult question. I believe that if that individual can be identified, it will be prudent to perhaps get a version from that official in terms of what transpired here before I can comment on whether that person needs to be held responsible. I do not know what transpired there.
I'll put it differently. Somebody purported to have received these. You testified earlier that you know that they never left the DPCI offices in Port Shepstone. Is that a concern to you that you are confronted with an entry such as this in circumstances where somebody in Port Shepstone Police Station purports to be receiving something that never left the DPCI offices in the first place?
Indeed, Commissioners, because it is a misrepresentation.
Now, that person, would I be correct to conclude that based on what is written here, this person confirms that these exhibits were in fact cocaine? You remember when they left Isipingo, they are noted as suspected to be cocaine. The receiving, if we go to the first document, the Isipingo SAP 13, says 541 by 1 kg brick, containing powder suspected to be cocaine. You confirm that, right?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And we know overleaf in that the entry was that these were taken for analysis.
That's
and you
correct.
testified that, to your knowledge, no analysis was conducted.
That's correct, Commissioners.
2 days later now, Port Shepstone Police Station accepts them as bricks of powder. Oh, so my apologies. It still says suspected to be cocaine. I misread that. My question is there any evidence, objective, independent evidence, that the exhibits entered into Isipingo SAP 13 are the same that are now registered here at the Port Shepstone Police Station? Is there any independent evidence that the Commission can turn to? I think you said that Isipingo is about more than 100 kilometers from Port Shepstone.
Port Shepstone, that's correct, Commissioner.
So what must we look to satisfy ourselves that what was taken, what was registered as Isipingo is indeed what is now registered at Port Shepstone Police Station?
There's no independent corroboration to come to the conclusion that what was entered in Isipingo is now entered at Port Shepstone, Commissioners.
Now, are you in a position to express an opinion as now regards the conduct of Warrant Officer Mpangase, who, as you indicated under column 6, states that these items were taken for investigation? Do you have a view to express on that?
Commissioner, even that is a misrepresentation. If it was booked out for investigation, there was no investigation to be done on the exhibits except for the work to be done by FSL. So it was supposed to read, taken then for submission to FSL. That's what I would have suspected. Not for investigation, because as a detective at organized crime, the warrant unfortunately cannot determine whether it's cocaine or not. So that's a misrepresentation.
I'm sure you meant expected and not suspected.
Expected.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, General. In both the two SAP 13s, the exhibits are said to relate to DPCI Inquiry 28/06/2021. I think yesterday you touched on, an inquiry number versus a CAS number, and if I understood you correctly, for all intents and purposes, they're about the same, is it? The registered inquiry.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And this inquiry is registered at the DPCI, by the DPCI.
That's correct, Commissioners.
I would take it then, once registered and investigations start, a file is created. I won't call it a docket, being an inquiry. A file is created that is then populated with whatever the investigations are able to yield. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
Yeah, that's correct, Commissioners. What basically happens is that the inquiry gets registered. Then the person that opened it will obviously affix either a statement or a document to the A part of the inquiry, make an entry into the SAP 5, which is the investigation diary, in the C clip of the inquiry, and then submit that inquiry immediately to an officer and we refer to it as a 24-hour inspection, and then the inquiry is booked out to an investigating officer.
And from the same documents, they are all in manuscript headed Port Shepstone CAS 129/11/2021. But that is the post-burglary or post-theft of the exhibit. That's a different CAS number, correct?
Yes, that is all the evidence that was gathered subsequent to the burglary and theft that's contained in the Port Shepstone docket, Commissioners.
I ask this because we haven't come across a file containing any documentation or, of the type you describe, or speaking to progress of investigations under that inquiry. Do you have a copy of that file? And this is prior to the theft of the drugs at Port Shepstone DPCI offices.
The investigating officer is having the original inquiry that was registered, Commissioners.
To your knowledge, are there any documents in that inquiry file predating the day of the theft?
Commissioners,
to your recollection, if you can comment.
I do not have detail of what was contained in the inquiry file.
Okay. And you say the investigating officer would be able to shed light on that?
Indeed, Commissioners.
I'm happy to leave it at that. Now, I think we can then pick up from where you left off at your statement.
Maybe before.
Yes, Commissioner.
General, this CJC 194, just to understand it, at the very last page, the entry there, it's the very last column on the extreme right. I think at the top it says page 56, if you're where I am.
That's correct, Commissioner. I observe it.
So you've got that 6.1 entry there by Warrant Officer Bangase, and then it says items 3.1 rather, to 3.31 taken for investigation. Am I correct to understand it to mean that he conveys that he took the whole consignment out for investigation? Is that a correct understanding?
You are correct, Commissioner. If you, for instance, look at the previous pages, the list of exhibits booked in by Warrant Officer Pangase was from 3.1 until 323. Just see the pages up to 331.
Yes. Okay, so he's representing that he took everything.
Everything, that's correct, Commissioner.
All right. And then still in that column, but the typewriting above where you've got those paragraph numbers, 6.4 above where you've got the typing, it says signature of deliverer. Now, if you look at the handwritten 6.4, it's a scribble, and I think Mr. Law was saying we can't tell who that is. Who is a receiver where it says signature of deliverer? What is contemplated there?
The deliverer obviously will be, and on face value it seems to be the same person that signed on a 4.5, will be then the Community Service Center commander in all probability, if it was not the SAP 13 clerk that affixed his or her signature to both columns.
So they are a deliverer because what? They are the ones that hand over the...
And handing out the exhibits again,
to Mpangase if things were done properly. Ordinarily, he would be handing over.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Okay, all right. And then lastly, in CJC 193, the smaller exhibit, the second page, and you touched on this, where Warrant Officer Mpangase gives the reason why the items are being taken out of Isipingo, and he says items taken for analysis. Is it a correct understanding for me to understand this to mean these, as far as this is concerned, this document, these exhibits remained under the control of Isipingo? They were just taken out for analysis.
No.
They were not being transferred to another police station.
No, it does not remain under the custodianship or command of the Sipingo Station commander. Mpangase assumed full responsibility for the exhibits when he booked it out.
Okay, maybe let me ask it differently. So let's say, forget that we have 194 CJC, forget about it. Imagine it's not there. And all I have is this 193. And I look there where it says item taken for analysis. It gives me Mpangase and his first number. Should I expect that if I go to Isipingo, if this is all I'm dealing with, if I go to Isipingo, I should find these exhibits there? Because he says they've been taken out for analysis, or does it mean taken out for analysis ordinarily would even include transferring them to a different station?
Commissioner, it can only mean what he has said here. It's taken for analysis. So it's not supposed to be at Isipingo Station further. The only place it can be will be at the different police station, but in terms of this entry, it's supposed to be at the Forensic Science Laboratory.
Yes.
And at no other place.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Silo, I want to ask a question, and please feel free to stop me if you're still coming to it, because I may be getting ahead of myself.
Thank you.
General, shouldn't there be another document akin to CJC's 193 and 194 reflecting the arrival of these exhibits at the Port Shepstone DPCI offices and their storage there? Shouldn't there be a document that accounts for that process?
Commissioner, in the normal way of going about investigations, obviously there will be contemporaneous notes and statements filed to that effect. But yeah, it's clear that there was no SAP 13 register at the unit in Port Shepstone, and that's why, in order to obtain a reference number for the exhibits, that's why it was just booked in the paper exercise at Port Shepstone Police Station.
But then how do we know that 551 bags actually arrived at the DPCI offices in Port Shepstone if there's no document recording the arrival of those exhibits in the form described in 193 to say it was 541 1 kg bricks containing powder that looks like cocaine? So how do we know that these bricks ever made their way to the warehouse or the office in Port Shepstone if there's no document that records that?
That's indeed true, and it is a shortcoming, Commissioner, that you are identifying. But there are witness statements to that effect in the case docket, and I would prefer not to elaborate more on that specific aspect at this point, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner. But I think if I understand the question correctly myself, maybe I just might be confusing. The question is slightly different. I understand, and we are aware of the statements that are in the docket. What I understood, Commissioner Kumalo, to try and establish from you is we have the SAP 13 from Isipingo. That's a formal objective document that survives anyone's death, so to speak, right? We have the second, which is the SAP Port Shepstone police station document. Without having to resort to statements obtained under certain circumstances, is there a document, a objective separate from everything else and not a statement obtained under, let's say, during investigations after the theft? Is there a Port Shepstone DPCI officer's document that reflects that on this day, at this time, these exhibits were received?
I am not aware of such, Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I want to, yes, Commissioner.
And that seems to be what paragraph 9.1 contemplates, that there would have been an SAP 13 register of the DPCI, which would then have recorded these exhibits.
That is how it was supposed to work,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Thank
Indeed,
you.
your understanding is correct, Commissioner Baloy.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. You recall when we were dealing with CJC 194, this is the Port Shepstone Police Station SAP 13. I had started to make a particular comment, and I corrected myself and I said I misread the document. And that was in relation to the description of the exhibits. The first entry at 3.1 states that it's one FSL exhibit bag and gives a number containing 20 bricks of powder suspected to be cocaine. We dealt with that. I then corrected myself that Port Shepstone Police Station doesn't deal with the exhibits as definitely cocaine, but maintains the position assumed by Isipingo as well that it's powder suspected to be cocaine. On closer reflection, when I look at 3.2, it says 20 bricks, of some word cocaine sealed in exhibit. Because I don't know what is the word that precedes cocaine, I'll prefer, or drugs. That then, if you look at 3.2 following, every other entry is described as drug cocaine. It's no longer, what do I make of this? Only the first batch at 3.1 is suspected to be cocaine, and the rest are definitely cocaine? Or must I read this document to mean that notwithstanding the wording of 3.2 to 3.31, they are still all suspected to be cocaine? As a police officer, how would you advise we properly read it?
Commissioners, the entry reflected in 3.1 is indeed spot on. That is how it's supposed to be. Because according to my knowledge, there was no presumptive test conducted at the crime scene or at Isipingo Police Station to indeed confirm that it was cocaine. So 3.1 is correct. From 3.2 onwards, if all speak about cocaine, that will be inaccurate.
Thank you. Okay, I'd invited us then to go back to your statement, your original statement. And I think based on where you concluded yesterday, we should pick it up from page 23, paragraph 65.
Not 64.
I was wondering whether it's 64 or 65. I'd marked 65, but
actually
I'm
have-
happy to go back to
I
64.
actually have a mark against 64.
That will do so, Chair. In fact, I'll go a step back, perhaps to contextualize. At 63, you say I referred earlier to the November 2021 information note by General Musikidi. Do you see where I'm reading?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And then, as the Chair suggests, we then must pick it up from your paragraph 64. Correct?
That's correct,
Can you
Commissioners.
deal then with the contents of paragraph 64?
Yes, Commissioners. There is an allegation that FSL was again contacted on 27 October 2021 to expedite the analysis report. However, Warrant Officer Sechedi reiterated that FSL did not have space to store the exhibits. This is after FSL had received 700 kilograms of cocaine seized in Ayrton in July 2021. Curiously, no attempts were made to increase security at the premises or to move the cocaine to a more secure location after the attempted break-in.
If you could continue then on to 65, then we will turn our attention to the information note you reference.
I say this especially because even before the exhibits were stored at Port Shepstone, the premises had not been secure. In the information note, General Musikidi refers to 6 break-ins at the premises before June 2021, with the most recent before the theft being on 15 January 2021. Most importantly, on 22 January 2020, Lieutenant Colonel S.R. Singh, Acting Section Commander Counterintelligence Crime Intelligence KZN, submitted a report to the Provincial Head of Crime Intelligence KZN, Provincial Head of the DPCI KZN, Section Head Operations Crime Intelligence KZN, Section Commander Ugu Cluster Crime Intelligence KZN, and the National Head Security Standard Counterintelligence to address the security breach at the Port Shepstone premises following the 20 January 2020 break-in. The report is attached to General Musikidi's information note.
Okay, there are 2 issues, particularly in this paragraph, that I think we should deal with sequentially. The first is you say the report references 6 previous break-ins at the premises before June 2021. General Musikidi's report and information note is your annexure HFF4, starting at page 113. That is the document you reference, correct?
It is correct, Commissioners.
Okay, now if you turn to page 118, the heading there is the security aspect. And are these the break-ins you referred to at your paragraph 65?
That's correct, Commissioners.
I don't know if, because I've been particularly dyslexic this morning, whether I have it wrong. I count, excluding the last, which is the actual break-in at Port Shepstone in November 2021, resulting in the theft of the drugs, I count 7 previous. You reference 6. Who is dyslexic this time, General, between you and I? But most important, are these the same break-ins you referred to at paragraph 65?
Commissioners, indeed, it's the same break-ins, and I accept responsibility for that error. It's indeed 7 and not 6.
Most importantly, it's for my own self-esteem, because it confirms I'm not particularly dyslexic. Thank you. So you say that would make it 7, according to that table, 7 break-ins at the Port Shepstone DPCI offices, or from December 2011 to October 2021. And once again, I'm discounting the last entry. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
In your experience, how secure would you consider premises that have been broken into that many times over a 10-year period? I can make a call. I don't know if this is highly insecure, medium, or low. What comment would you give to that?
Commissioners, I'm of the view that it's almost not secured. It just shows us that there's a lot of opportunities for prospective housebreakers or burglars to gain access to this premises. So the security measures at that office obviously was not at the required standard.
And in the same paragraph 65, you then deal with the communication by Lieutenant Colonel S.R. Singh. This is referred to at paragraph 4.2 of General Musikidi's report that we're considering, but I think best we go to the actual letter. by Lieutenant Colonel Singh, and that you'll find still under the same annexure number HFF4 at page 121. Do you see that?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, this is directed to 5 heads of various units. I'm particularly interested in the second addressee, the provincial head, Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigations, KwaZulu-Natal. Do you see where I'm reading?
That's correct, Commissioners.
If you go over leaflet 122, at the bottom, you will see that this document is signed by Lieutenant Colonel Singh and it's dated 2020, January 2022. Do you see?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Do you know who was the provincial head, Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigations, KwaZulu-Natal, as at that date?
Commissioners, if my memory serves me correct, by then there was not a person appointed as the provincial head, so one of the brigadiers within the province would have been acting. General Sonona was only promoted and appointed later during 2020 to the position of provincial head for the DPCI and KZN. So subsequent to this letter, he got promoted.
So, and it's a position that General Sonona continues to hold.
That's correct, Commissioners.
So, based on your answer, then, are you suggesting that General Sonona would have inherited these issues, quote unquote, by inherited?
Indeed, Commissioners.
Let's then look into the content of this letter. And in particular, I would like us to have regard to paragraphs 1, 3, and 4 for the moment. Can you read those into the record, please?
That's on page 121.
121.
Evidence
And we are reading Lieutenant Colonel Singh's letter.
Paragraph 1. On 2020-01-20, a breach in security at the above-mentioned offices was reported via email to this office as per attached correspondence from Captain L. van Niekerk of the Provincial DPCI SCM, and that stands for Supply Chain Management Head. The officers were visited by Captain L. van Niekerk on 2020-01-20 in order to conduct a site inspection of the breach. On page 122,
Yes, please.
a case was opened at Port Shepstone SAPS via case 268 of 1/2020. And then paragraph 4, a general inspection conducted by this office previously of the premises revealed the following in terms of MIS. Now, MIS stands for Minimum Information Security Standards. Security measures. No CCTV cameras are installed in and around the premises. There is no early warning alarm systems in place within the office space, more specifically in offices located on the ground floor. And then the third bullet is no beam sensors located exterior to the office accommodation.
Thank you. Now, you recall when we started with this document, you indicated that General Sonona is the current provincial head of the DPCI in KZN, but to your knowledge and recollection, he was not holding that position as at the date of issue of this letter.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Do you happen to know who was the provincial commander of the DPCI in Port Shepstone at the time?
The provincial commander for serious organized crime in the province based in Durban was and still is Brigadier Newswa. The unit commander or the acting unit commander by then, 2020, I'm not certain of who that individual would have been,
Yes.
who was the commander at Port Shepstone.
Then if I perhaps can ask you to perhaps run ahead to page 124 of the same annexure. This now, for the record, is the report by General Sinona, annexed to General Musikidi's information note, and the document itself is dated 9th November 2021. I want to refer you to page 124, paragraph 1.4 of General Sinona's report, and I wonder if you can help clarify something for me. Are you at 1.4?
Yes, I am, Commissioner.
Just for context, this document is about the seizure and storage and subsequent theft of the very drugs we're in conversation about. At 1.4, the last sentence reads thus. Okay, the penultimate sentence. A request was made to arrange a suitable storage location. Do you see where I'm reading? This is after they've been at Isipingo. Do you see where I'm reading? It continues, the provincial commander indicated that the DPCI Port Shepstone SOCI unit premises be utilized to store said exhibits. The location has been used to store drug exhibits previously, as it has 2 strong rooms. My first question is, do you know who was the provincial commander at this time?
It was still Brigadier Newswalk, Commissioners.
So would it then be correct to say the decision to store at the DPCI offices, Port Shepstone, was based on, is it Brigadier Newswalk? Brigadier Newswalk's advice?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Okay. Then I would like to invite your comment in the context of what Lieutenant Colonel Singh has said about the shortcomings in security measures of the premises. The absence of CCTV cameras, absence of warning system alarms, no beam sensors. I would like to invite your comment on the conclusion at paragraph 124, that this location has been used to store drug exhibits previously, as it has 2 strong rooms. What does the fact that it has strong rooms, what impact does that have on the security arrangements that were in place at the time, as expressed by Lieutenant Colonel Singh in his letter?
Well, Commissioners, the mere fact that it's a strong room is no guarantee that the crime cannot be committed, for instance, a burglary as it happened here. You need additional layers of security measures to obviously make it difficult or impossible for individuals to breach that premises first and foremost, and then to get access to the building, and then to execute successfully the bridging of the vault and the removing of the exhibits. So additional security measures is critical. If that's not in place, I'm of the view that it's extremely reckless and irresponsible to place exhibits in such a strong room or a vault. It would have been more safe at any other police station that is 24 hourly manned, because at least you've got a human element then at the police station, and those police officers on duty in the charge office are armed. So at least that's an additional barrier that was completely absent here.
Thank you, General. Then if we could go back then to General Musikidi's, Lieutenant Colonel Singh's letter at page 121. He concludes that letter with certain comments, and they sound more like recommendations regarding being heard to the wording. He concludes, under comments, it is hereby recommended. Do you see where I'm reading?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Could you please read those recommendations into the record?
It is hereby recommended that the above-mentioned office initiate processes in order to remedy the contributing factors that led to the physical security breach, which is, first bullet, installation of perimeter beam sensors around the ground floor of the office accommodation. Bullet 2, interior office accommodation infrared sensors. Bullet 3, engagement with the contracted armed response company to ensure efficient service in terms of timeous visits to the site. And then the fourth bullet, the upgrading and repairs of the perimeter lighting. Thank
you. Do you know whether any of these recommendations were carried out?
I do not have knowledge of such, Commissioners.
So you are not in a position to comment whether or not any one of them was in place 18 months later when the theft took place?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Okay. Chair and Commissioners, I see it's 11. Might this be inappropriate?
Let us adjourn and resume at 11:25.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning again. It's 24 minutes past. We are ready to resume the hearing. Please switch off your cell phones and any devices that might disrupt us. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Sillo.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, before I continue with General Flynn, may I request that we attend to a housekeeping matter that I had intended to bring up yesterday, but in the pressure to prepare a full-blown in-camera application, I overlooked it. For the record, the witnesses appearing this week do so are members of the SAPS. They are appearing in response to subpoenas received. General Sinona had been issued with a subpoena to appear on the 8th of May, which is Friday. On Monday, this past Monday, the 4th, at about 6 p.m., we received a request from his attorneys for a postponement of his appearance from the 8th of May to a later date. Now, I address you, Chair, to request that you grant that postponement to the 1st of June. So the subpoena stands to the 1st of June, 2026. Just for the record as well and clarity, the application to move one witness's testimony in camera is in respect of a different witness. And the outcome of that application, as you had indicated, is awaited tomorrow in the afternoon. You will determine whether that witness is proceeding in camera or in public, and that is still underway. So I'm moving I have a slightly different request, specifically in respect of General Sinona, that his appearance in terms of the subpoena issued be postponed to the 1st of June as they had requested. The request came through on Monday the 4th. Thank you, Chair.
And are sufficient reasons given by General Sinona's attorneys for the request? On your assessment?
On my assessment. Well, I wouldn't say all the reasons advanced are cogent, but one of the issues he raises is that since his suspension, he doesn't have sufficient access to his, computers and records held at the office. And he would require more time to attend to that. And I think perhaps that alone may be a sufficient ground to grant him the extension. He raises other issues in his request for a postponement, and he references his ongoing labor matter with the SAPS. And I think he says he's scheduled for an appearance on the 7th of May. So I would suggest that on the basis of those two reasons, there are other reasons advanced, of course, but I think those two reasons would be sufficient to argue for a postponement, Chair.
Thank you.
And if I may say, I would believe that if he's postponed to the 1st of June 2026, that would be shy of 4 weeks, and that is a fair postponement.
The hearing of General Sinona's evidence is postponed to 1 June 2026 at 9:30 a.m.
Most appreciated, and we shall communicate with him formally and so inform him, Chair.
And perhaps it's best to issue a subpoena, seeing that, or extend the same one. You'll look into the practicalities.
Yes,
yeah, and I'm suggesting that because the general is not here,
yes,
for us to direct him in his presence.
We still have to respond to the formal request made on Monday. So in the process of doing that, we will bring the chair's order to his attention, and we will determine whether it is necessary to reissue now a subpoena for the 1st of June or to extend the current subpoena to the 1st of June. We will look into those matters.
Thank you, Ms. Sello.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, we may.
Thank you.
Comments. Yeah.
Well, having disposed of that, then I think we are ready to proceed with General Flynn. General, before we broke for tea, you had confirmed that the recommendations, you had addressed the question of whether or not the recommendations made by Lieutenant Colonel Singh as regards the security of the DPCI officers in Port Shepstone had been given effect to, and you had directed us to Captain Nuswa, now the ranks, Brigadier Nuswa,
Brigadier Nuswa
as
was,
the person you say was the provincial commander at the time.
that's
Who,
correct.
according to General Sinona's report attached to General Musikidi's information note, is said to be the one to have suggested that the Port Shepstone offices may be used. And you had commented about how appropriate that was. So it was just to locate us in the statement. Staying then with General Musikidi's information note, and that is your annexure HFF4, starting at page 113. I picked up something that I would require clarity on and perhaps guidance. At paragraph 3, at page 117 of that information note, General Musikidi quotes the National Instruction 8 of 2017, and in particular paragraph 12, property dealt with by experts. Do you see that?
That's correct,
And then
Commissioners.
she quotes paragraphs 12, sub 2, sub A, and further down the page, towards the bottom of the page, she quotes paragraph 12, sub 2. Now, I would like you to go back to your annexure HFF2, as I have it on record, that is the National Instruction 8 of 2017.
That's correct, Commissioners.
And it would appear to be the same document that General Musigidi is referring to here.
That's correct, Commissioners.
I flip in that actual document to paragraph 12. And paragraph 12 will be found at page 97 of that document. 97. And under paragraph 12, the heading is different. It's vehicles. Do you see that?
That's correct, Commissioners.
General Musigidi quotes it as paragraph 12 as property dealt with by experts. However, if I flip back to paragraph 9, and that is at page 76, I locate in the exact terms as quoted by General Musigidi, in paragraph 9 at sub 2. What General Musigidi references. So the situation that we are confronted with is either you have put up a wrong document or you have put up a correct document, except there is perhaps a typographical error in General Musigidi's statement. For example, if you read paragraph 9, it reads, all property and exhibits seized must be entered into the SAP 13 register of the relevant police station where the crime was committed or where the property was found, and then transferred to the relevant unit and entered in this SAP as 13 of the relevant unit. It continues still under sub 2. The SAPS 13 registers of these units must be inspected regularly, and these instructions are applicable to those commanders. Do you see?
That's correct.
Now, if
Commissioners.
we go back then to General Musikidi's report, these are the exact same words that are quoted here, except that they are said to be in terms of paragraph 12.2a and paragraph 12.2. Now, if you were to go back to the vehicles, there is, in fact, paragraph 12 vehicles. There is no paragraph 12.2 for starters. How do we reconcile, how do you suggest we reconcile these seeming contradictions?
Commissioners, it is obvious that there was a typo in the report by General Mosekidi, where it's referred to 12. It's supposed to be paragraph 9(2), and there, as Advocate Celu indicated, there is no such 12(2). So it's supposed to be in totality referring to paragraph 9(2).
And you maintain that the National Instruction 8 of 2017 that you have annexed as Annexure HFF2 is the correct document?
That is the correct instruction, National Instruction, Commissioners, that's correct.
Okay.
Is it the one that was applicable when General Musikidi prepared her document?
I make that
Because these things can undergo amendment and additions, so.
That would perhaps be a second question, because I'd made the assumption that it was, because General Musikidi quotes the actual name of the instruction note as National Instruction 8 of 2017.
Yeah.
If she was looking at a different document, then we have a situation where we have two National Instruction 8 of 2017.
Yeah. No, my question is slightly different. Is it possible that it's the same document, but because it's a living document, over
You mean
time
as
there
it
were
stood?
amendments made to it, but it remained National Instruction of, but it underwent amendments so that by 2021, what you see as paragraph 9 was in fact now paragraph 12.
It is possible, and perhaps General Flynn may cast some light on that. Did you understand the question, General?
I understand the question, Commissioners. I'm not aware of any amendments that were made, so I think the detail reflected here is indeed correct, but it's supposed to be reflected under 9(2).
All right.
As corrected.
And for completeness, Commissioner Khumalo, perhaps what we may do, we may request General Musikidi to clarify whether the annexure HFF2 that General Flynn has put up is the exact same document that she references here, or whether it was perhaps an amended version of it, of a prior date. We will look into that and revert. Thank you. Thank you, General. General Musikidi then considers both the report by General Senona and the letter by Lieutenant Colonel Singh in her information note. You confirm that?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And she concludes the report by making certain recommendations, and these start at page 119 of Annexure HFF1.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, I would like you, I guess for the record, there are 4 recommendations made. If perhaps you could read them into the record, and then we will consider what is set out therein. Thank you.
6.1, that the national head appoint a senior functionary at the level of a Major General to lead an investigation in terms of SAP's Disciplinary Regulations 2016 to establish whether misconduct was committed in the handling and storage of the exhibits. 6.2, that the senior functionary provides the outcome of the departmental investigation in terms of Regulation 8.1 of the SAP's Disciplinary Regulation 2016. 6.3, that an audit be done at all DPCI buildings and offices to check compliance with minimum information security standards. And 6.4, that the Provincial Head KwaZulu-Natal provides a progress report on the site inspection recommendations by Crime Intelligence during January 2020.
Thank you, General. Before we deal with other issues here, are you aware if any of these recommendations were given effect? My apologies. I'll restate that. I was saying before we deal with the remainder of that document, I would like to find out whether you, based on the position you occupy within DPCI, are aware of whether or not any of these recommendations were given effect to.
Commissioners, it is my understanding that no disciplinary steps were initiated against Major General Sonona or any of his subordinates. So that speaks then to obviously recommendation 6.1 and 6.2. I do not have knowledge in terms of the recommendations on 6.3 and 6.4 respectively, so I will not be in a position to respond to that, Commissioners.
What should we make of General Libia's, because he doesn't approve the recommendations, he says discuss paragraph 6.
That was the next step I was getting to. I just wanted to test with the general whether any of them were carried out. I do note the caution raised by General Libia. Now, as I read this document, if you go to 113, it is directed to the National Head Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. And at the time, that was General Libia, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And as Commissioner Kumalo has indicated, it is put to him to approve or not approve all of the 4 recommendations made. You see that?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, there is a note in manuscript there. Discuss paragraph 6, thank you. Now, I accept, and it's signed by Lieutenant General National Head Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, SG Libya, and dated the 28th of January 2022. I accept that you wouldn't know whether or not General Libya and General Musikiri didn't discuss, as he had suggested.
That's correct, Commissioners.
I was more interested in whether or not in your environment you are aware of any of these recommendations having been carried out. And you have responded to that. So I get Commissioner Kumalo, this is a matter that General Libya is better placed to shed light on. Thank you. I'm particularly interested in recommendation 6.3, the wording thereof, which suggested that an audit be done on all DPCI buildings and offices to check compliance with MIS. Even outside the context of this document, which is where that is put up as a recommendation to General Libya, are you aware of an audit of these buildings ever having been undertaken?
Commissioners, as I've stated, I have no knowledge of recommendation 6.3 and 6.4 respectively, and I will not be able to comment on that.
No, General, my question is slightly different. Are you aware of any audit since the break-in at Port Shepstone of DPCI buildings and offices to check for compliance with MIS? Are you aware of that exercise at all?
I'm not aware of any such exercise, Commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioners, I think before I suggest wrongly, if we go back to your statement, that would then mean that we have covered, and I need you to confirm, your paragraph 66, 67, and 68. Do you confirm that we have covered what is raised in those paragraphs through the engagements we've had?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Okay. I know that after 68, you then make certain concluding remarks. I would invite you to deal with them, except I think that might be best done after you have dealt with your supplementary statement. So if we could pause that part of your statement and turn our attention instead to your supplementary statement that was admitted into evidence this morning. That should be located at the back of your file. And you indicate in this supplementary statement at paragraph 1 that you prepared this statement to deal with the analysis that you conducted, where you compared the events that transpired relating to 541 kilograms of cocaine seized since June 2021 and stolen from police custody in November 2021. And you do that comparison with other drug busts, seizures in Durban in the period 2020 to 2022, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
And that is the narrow view, perspective of this supplementary statement, that is its sole purpose. Am I correct?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Then if you could take us from paragraph 2 of your supplementary statement, which is where you deal with this analysis you conducted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. In January 2026, I called for the inquiry files in respect of identified drug busts in Durban during 2020 to 2022 to see whether the 22 June 2021 seizure is evidence of a worrying pattern of irregularities or whether it is an anomaly. Perhaps my audit would reveal that additional training was required because this is a pattern of non-compliance with prescripts during seizures and that there is an innocent explanation for the irregularities. However, the subsequent theft of the 541 kilograms of cocaine made me very suspicious that the seizure irregularities were not the result of inadequate training. According to the DPCI's records, the following seizures occurred in Durban during the period 20 to 22. I'm not referring to any clandestine drug laboratories, Commissioners.
That is then followed by a table listing a number of cases which you say are seizures that occurred in Durban during the period 2020 to 2022. Below that table, you then address each seizure in turn. As we get to then paragraph 3 in that table, before we deal with each seizure in turn, are there any comments you'd like to make to this table?
Commissioners, it's explained in detail in the following paragraph, so I can perhaps deal with the incidents and then perhaps go back to the column if that's needed.
Yeah,
Summary.
I'm happy with the approach. So then we'll turn our attention to paragraph 4 of your statement at page 2. And that's where you deal with the first seizure, correct?
That's correct, Commissioners. On the 5th of February 2020, members of the DPCI, Durban Serious Organised Crime Investigation Unit, were summoned to a crime scene at the CHC depot in Prospecton, Durban, where SARS Customs detected a consignment of suspected mandrax. The suspected mandrax was hidden in a container that was offloaded from a vessel that originated from China. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed, weighed, and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The mass of the suspected mandrax was 547 kilograms. The exhibits were booked in at Isipingo SAPS under a reference number, and then the exhibits were submitted to the main forensic science laboratory in Silverton on 12 November 2021. FSL confirmed that the exhibits were mandrax, and the case was investigated by Durban under a certain reference number.
Before we proceed to the next case, do we know whether there's been an outcome on this matter or are investigations ongoing?
Up to date, there's been no significant breakthrough on this matter, Commissioners, but we are looking into the matter again.
Thank you. Then I think you can turn to paragraph 5, which is...
Sorry, before you do.
Yes.
This is an operation in 2020. What would have happened to the drugs that were seized as at today? What happened?
Commissioner Baloy, this is also the matter that I spoke to yesterday. The Mandrake seizure, the 547
Yes.
that went to Isipingo. So as I've indicated, upon closure of the inquiry, Forensic Science Laboratory are informed of the outcome of the investigation, and they then have the responsibility to dispose of the exhibits. So the current status of the Mandrakes, I do not have any knowledge of.
But ordinarily, it would be where if you say the investigation is still ongoing.
Obviously, we after I summoned or requested these inquiries, we've looked into it, identified aspects that need further investigation. So that's why we are continuing with the investigation part.
Okay.
But once narcotics specifically is handed or submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory, it's never returned to a SAP 13 facility.
Okay.
It is kept at Forensic Science Laboratory until the matter is finalized and then disposed of.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy and General Flynn. So would it be correct then to conclude, because you don't say otherwise, as to where the Mandrakes is it a correct expectation that it should be with the FSL in Silverton, where it was delivered on the 12th of November 2021?
If it's not already disposed of, it's supposed to be there, Commissioners.
And would I be correct to say that what becomes of the seized drugs is regulated in terms of your annexure HFF3 from page 103? Would I be correct? And in particular, I guess I'm interested in page 111, paragraph 5.12, which deals with disposition/destruction of illicit drugs.
That's correct, Commissioners. This is the correct protocol that I've been referring to.
Okay. Thank you. So then we may move on to your paragraph 5.
On 8 May 2020, members of the DPCI Durban Serious Organised Crime Investigation Unit followed up on information in relation to a container that was already offloaded from the vessel Polonia that originated from the Port of Santos in Brazil. Upon further investigation, 35 kilogram bricks of suspected cocaine was recovered from a container. The cocaine had the logos Nautica, BMW, MTA, Z and H on the wrappings. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The mass of the suspected cocaine was 35 kilograms. The exhibits were booked in at Maiden Wharf SAP 30 SAPS under a specific reference number. The exhibits were submitted to the Forensic Science Laboratory in Amanzimtoti on 21 May 2020. FSL confirmed that the exhibits are cocaine. The case was investigated under a reference number of Durban Soki. Commissioners, perhaps at this point in time, I should indicate that in this list, there was 3 cases where the exhibits was submitted to FSL in Amanzimtoti. And the reason for that is that you will observe that the mass of these exhibits is much lesser than the bulk seizures that was ultimately submitted to FSL in Silverton. So it includes this 35 kilograms as well as some of the seizures that is subsequently discussed.
Thank you, General. Before you move to the next seizure at paragraph 6, and I think this will be a theme that runs through each one of these as you deal with them. If we look at the first, at the bottom of that paragraph, paragraph 4, which is at page 3, similarly with the case you have just dealt with, the third line from the bottom of that paragraph, consistently you indicate FSL confirmed that the exhibits were mandrakes. That was the case with the first one. Now, with this seizure, you say at line 3 from the bottom of that paragraph, FSL confirmed that the exhibits are cocaine. This confirmation that you consistently reference, it's safe to assume it's a written confirmation that would be filed and with the investigating officer. Where does it go?
That is correct, Commissioners. Upon finalization of the analysis by FSL, a Section 212 statement or affidavit is prepared and submitted to the investigating officer of the matter. That then forms part of the case docket or the inquiry as part of the bundle of evidence in that case docket or inquiry.
And you recall that we briefly touched on the case referred to as the inquiry in respect of the Port Shepstone drug seizure. Would it be a correct assumption? Firstly, was the Section 212 statement an analysis report filed in respect of the Port Shepstone seizure?
No,
seizure?
Commissioners, there was never a report submitted or received from FSL.
Formally, therefore, we don't know whether what was stolen was in fact, what was seized at the harbour was in fact drugs. Is there a report that confirms that it was firstly drugs and secondly that in fact it was cocaine?
There is no such report, Commissioners.
Okay. And if such a report would have been filed, is it fair to assume that it would be filed in the inquiry docket opened by DPCI?
Yes, it would have been filed in the inquiry docket, Commissioners, because that was the instrument used to investigate the matter under an inquiry.
Okay.
Can I just get clarity on that? How long does it usually take from the date when the drugs are seized to when such a report is produced, identifying what the substance is? Or because in this case, I'm thinking June, July, August, September, October, until early November. It's over 4 months. Drugs are stored in a warehouse or in an office. No tests are conducted until the drugs mysteriously disappear.
Commissioners, as I've testified yesterday, obviously it will depend on the storage capabilities at the Forensic Science Laboratory. If there's space and it's not bulk exhibits, for instance, they will accept it. But it has happened, and from my reading of the respective inquiries and case dockets, it's clear that there's multiple references to the fact that upon a request being made to FSL, they were informed that they do not have storage facilities available, obviously based on a heavy workload. So there's multiple cases before this matters that needs to be dealt with before these exhibits can be submitted. So obviously it prolongs the submission of the exhibits to the Forensic Science Laboratory.
But surely there has to be proof that there was a request and that request was declined because of the workload, or that you must wait in line. It will take about 6 months for us to get to your consignment and test it. Is there any paperwork that reflects that all of that was done?
In some instances, yes, commissioners.
in this specific case?
But no, predominantly it is inquiries that was made telephonically and then entries made in the SAP5, in the investigation diary.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioners, what I can perhaps also add to my statement here, in this matter specifically, due to the proper manner in which the investigation was conducted, the evidence collected in this case was lawfully transmitted to the United Kingdom upon their request, obviously by means of a mutual legal assistance application. And the UK authorities managed to prosecute an individual in the United Kingdom and obtained a conviction on the matter relating to the facts of this narcotics. So it's just proof of the transnational nature of these offences.
General, let me apologize to you and Advocate Sillo. My questions related to the Port Shepstone drugs, but in your further response, it seems like you were talking about what is in paragraph 5 of your supplementary statement. So my questions were aimed at the Port Shepstone drugs that went missing. So sorry if I was not very clear.
Perhaps, General, at least for the sake of tomorrow's readers, so that there is no confusion of the transcript, the question Commissioner Khumalo had posed was presumably any request to the FSL would be in writing. That was the first. And I think you confirmed that it is expected to be in writing and recorded somewhere, and where the FSL is not in a position to store the drugs from a recent seizure because of lack of space, they would equally indicate in writing. So there is a record of the request and how the request was dealt with. Would that be correct or not necessarily?
Commissioners, I'm not 100% sure in terms of the Port Shepstone matter. I was speaking in general about my observations throughout the inquiries that I've analysed. And there it's my observation that predominantly it's being done telephonically. So I'm not 100% sure in terms of the Port Shepstone matter. But I believe we can clear that up.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Which then, your answer raises a question for me. To the question Commissioner Khumalo posed, it would not be reasonable of us to expect the request and the response to the request to follow a stated format, be in writing, addressed to a specific unit head within the FSL and responded to in writing. That is not your experience and practice, so we should not expect that to be the case in all, if not most of the cases. And I'm relying on your experience here.
That's correct, Commissioners. But as I said yesterday, when it's inquiry investigations, and it's not, for instance, a court matter, there is not that pressure on the investigation team to get the investigation finalized like in a case docket that is currently before court. And I've indicated that there is a mechanism in place where we can request the forensic science laboratory to prioritize an investigation. But I think it's neither here nor there. It's important that whenever there is such bulk seizures being made, that it in any event, whether it's a case docket or an inquiry, needs to be a priority. And requests need to be submitted then to the forensic science laboratory for urgent submission.
Thanks, General. I think perhaps I was somewhat inarticulate in my question. We are trying to determine what is the general process in engaging with FSL. Is there a prescribed process or manner in which a request to the FSL must be made And does any protocol require that it be in writing and that FSL respond to that request similarly in writing? Is there such a protocol or not?
I'm not aware of such protocol,
You're not.
Commissioners, but logic dictates that if it's in writing, it cannot be disputed, especially if there's proof of
Yes.
a receipt.
Maybe, General, if you look at page 110 and see if that's the paragraph starting C. The heading is on 109, submission of illicit drugs for forensic analysis. And then it seems the discussion you're having with Ms. Sillo is covered at para 6. C rather, C and D. E even. And it seems that's all that regulates what should happen.
Yes, that is what I testified yesterday as well, Commissioner Baloy, is that upon submission of the exhibits to the Forensic Science Laboratory, it needs to be accompanied by this covering letter. That is acknowledged then, so you get an acknowledgement of receipt on the date that it was submitted. So that is indeed being complied with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. I think, and I'm going to test this, I think perhaps it's become clear in my head. The section that Commissioner Baloy just referred you to deals with the submission of the exhibits to the FSL, and it prescribes a process that must be followed.
That's
and
correct.
it does prescribe that there must be a written request and the like. The question, I think, General, why can I say General? Commissioner Khumalo. Umpteenth time, I do apologize, Commissioner. The question that Commissioner Khumalo and I think, were interested, the answer there to in, was relating to the request to FSL for storage, where FSL responds that it doesn't have storage capacity. So it's not the actual submission of the exhibits to.
Yes.
So then I'll take a step back. You remember in the morning when we started, I pointed out to your section of your statement, and I think General Musikiri also points out that when a request was made to FSL, it was rejected because FSL indicated that it was not a clean lab scenario. You recall that conversation?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And your view was that that rejection on that basis was correct because they ought not to have called FSL. It is LCRC they ought to have called. Articulate your answer, please, for the record.
You are correct.
Okay. So then we shouldn't confuse ourselves by seeking to find a formal written request to FSL for purposes of storage in circumstances where the exhibits were not being handed over to FSL. Would I be correct in that?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. I think I'm clarified.
Advocate Silo, my concern, General, is looking at how the exhibits were stored and how they were recorded and the shortcomings that Chair listed yesterday. Remember, he went up to 9. I think Advocate Waloen Silo added 2 more. From where I'm sitting, and I could be wrong, but it looks to me like there was never an intention to submit these drugs to FSL. There was never an intention to have them tested because of how they were handled throughout and how they were recorded. It raises concerns to me that it doesn't seem like there was ever an intention that these drugs will go to storage in Pretoria or that they would be tested so that we can be 100% sure that it was cocaine, 541 kilograms of it. Because I cannot understand how there is no paperwork saying to FSL, at some point when you do have capacity, we would like you to take these drugs. We would like for them to be tested so that we can ascertain that this was indeed cocaine. And if there's a need for people to be arrested and prosecuted, that can be done. What is your comment on my observation? I'm not stating facts, I'm just stating an observation.
Commissioner Kumalo, you are 100% correct. I also referred to that yesterday in the same manner as you have summarized it now, that it's my strong view that there was never an intention to submit it to FSL. And that's why I'm reflecting now on all the other cases where predominantly the crime scenes were dealt with correctly and the exhibits found its way into an SIP 13, remained in an SIP 13 at the police station. It was never stolen or tampered with and then submitted to the FSL. Whether it was a year later, I think for purposes of this exercise, it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is it was not stolen at the police stations and it arrived at the Forensic Science Laboratory intact.
Thank you, Commissioner Kumalo, and General Flynn. I think we're dealing with the matter at your paragraph 5, that incident that you said there was liaison with the British authorities and resulted in convictions in the UK. Are you in a position to comment about any prosecutions or convictions arising from that drug seizure of 8th May 2020 in South Africa? It's a yes or no. If you don't want to unpack, you don't have to. I just want to know what progress South Africa has made.
There was no prosecution up to date in South Africa, Commissioners.
No prosecution to date. I'll leave it there. I'll not probe any further. Getting back to your statement, if we look at your table, I think we are now at the third item, the 2021-02-23 matter, where under place and commodity you indicate Greenpoint. I'm correct, right? No, actually, we should be dealing with the 2020 August 11.
Yeah.
The cocaine bust of 20 kg. That's our next matter.
That's correct, Commissioner.
And you unpack that at your paragraph 6, so if you could take it from
correct.
there.
On 11 August 2020, members of the DPCI Durban Serious Organised Crime Investigation Unit followed up on information in relation to a container that was on the vessel Polonia that originated from the port of Santos in Brazil. The vessel was on anchorage before entering Durban Harbour. Upon further investigation, 20 kilogram bricks of suspected cocaine was recovered from the container. The cocaine had the Audi logo on the wrappings of 10 of the bricks. The other 10 bricks had no logo on. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The mass of the suspected cocaine was 20 kilograms. The exhibits were booked in at Durban Central SAPS under a reference number. Then the exhibits were submitted to FSL in Amanzimtoti on 1 September 2021. And then FSL confirmed that the exhibits were cocaine. And then the case was investigated under a certain reference number. And here, Commissioner, there's 2 cases where LCRC did not attend to the crime scene. But the investigators, and it's not clear what was the reason for the 2 incidents. It is then this case and the Manuchar case. LCRC did not attend to the scenes. But the investigators themselves complied with directives by having contemporaneous notes, by taking photos of the exhibits, and properly securing it by sealing the exhibits there and then where it was recovered from the container.
Before you move off that point, is it your testimony that it is imperative at all these seizure scenes that the LCRC be present, or it is not necessarily a requirement? What is the actual position?
It is very important, Commissioners, especially when it comes to the prospects of lifting fingerprints and touch DNA, which cannot be performed by an investigator. Although an investigator can take photos, compile it into a photo album, and ensure that the chain of custody is maintained and the integrity of the investigation is upheld by properly sealing the exhibits in exhibit bags. Investigators are not capable of performing that two very important aspects.
And in this case, I think you specifically pointed out that the risk of non-attendance or attendant on the LCRC not attending the scene was somehow ameliorated by the actions of the investigators themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, some of the tasks were performed, Commissioners, as I've indicated. But the reason why the investigators moved in here and conducted the investigations was that they had to beat the criminals to the vessel, and specifically the container. So there is an acceptable explanation for what transpired here. It's not clear in the Manuchar matter why Colonel Sabia did not summons LCRC to that matter. But in this matter, and I have the detail of the matter which I prefer not to disclose
please don't.
to the Commission, I'm satisfied that there was no wrongdoing on the part of the investigators in relation to this seizure of the 20 kilograms from the vessel.
I don't know if the commissioners have caught on the DPCI language. There is this case you keep, is it Manucha? Is that our Port Shepstone Shepstone matter, the Durban seizure of 22 June 2022?
No.
Okay.
The Manuchar seizure is a complete separate and non-related matter,
Okay,
Commissioners.
I'm clarified. Then my question is, in the Port Shepstone matter, the one that we've been dealing with, the LCRC did not attend the scene. Do you have an understanding of why that happened? Why the LCRC did not attend the scene at the harbour during the seizure of the Port Shepstone?
It's because they were not summoned, Commissioners.
Yeah, they were simply not summoned.
That's correct. Colonel Jacob indicated that he called Forensic Science Laboratory. But there was no indication that he ever requested the presence of the LCRC. And that was the important section to be present at that incident.
And when you deal with this case, you do point out that LCRC as well did not attend, and you gave explanation for why that was the case. But you went further than to say the failure to call LCRC in this particular instance was addressed by the steps that the investigators on the scene took. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Now, if I contrast that with the Port Shepstone matter, where similar steps taken from the records that you have been able to go through, were similar steps taken by the investigators to cover for the absence of the LCRC on site?
By no means, Commissioners. There was just a few photos taken of the exhibits there at the police station at Isipingo, few photos of the exhibits in the container, and shoddy work, to say the least. It was as if the investigators were in a hurry.
And lastly, I think you made the comment that you understood why the LCRC was not called to the scene on the day in respect of this seizure we're talking about. And if I heard you correctly, you said they were trying to beat the criminals to the container. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So there was a level of urgency in that case.
Indeed.
Does the same level of urgency, did the same level of urgency attach to the what I'll call the Port Shepstone seizure?
No, Commissioners.
Thank you.
But at least it sounds like at best you would say that no agency has been claimed for the absence of the LCRC in Port Shepstone.
Well, Commissioners, as explained by Colonel Jacob, he indicated that the scene became busy with the perhaps individuals arriving at the warehouse yard. But I also explained that that's a controlled environment already per se, as it's a warehouse. And it could have been easily contained where an outside perimeter and inside perimeter could have been deployed. And they could have decided how big that perimeter needed to be in order for them to properly deal with the scene. I also said that there was no need to transfer the crime scene or the exhibits seized from the crime scene to Isipingu before all the necessary investigations were done at the container.
I guess importantly, really, the question is, has Colonel Jacob anywhere stated or given a reason why the LCRC was not called? We know he called the FSL, that's what the records show, or what is alleged, but he hasn't said anything about, or has he said anything about why the LCRC was not called?
I'm not aware of the detail in relation to that aspect, Commissioner Baloy.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner. General, I think then we are ready to turn to your case number 4, which you deal with from your paragraph 7.
On 23 February 2021, members of the DPCI Durban SOCI followed up on information in relation to a container that was at Green Africa Container Yard. SARS Customs detected narcotics during a search of the container where 495 packages, and it was in total 9.9 kilogram, containing methamphetamine was seized from where it was hidden in the cargo in the container. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The exhibits were booked in at Brighton Beach SAPS under a reference number, and the exhibits were submitted to FSL in Amanzimtoti on 19 April 2021. FSL confirmed that the exhibits were methamphetamine. The case was investigated under a Durban reference number.
Noted. Is there anything you would like to highlight there in particular?
No, this is just the last matter, Commissioners, that was submitted to FSL in Amanzimtoti. As I said, that's the smaller seizures, the 9.9 kilograms, the 20 kilograms of cocaine and the 35 kilograms of cocaine was submitted to Amanzimtoti due to the capacity aspects.
And I note that on the point you just made, at your paragraphs 8, 9, and at 8 and 9, you deal with 2 other seizures, and these were submitted to a different FSL. Am I correct?
Just a quick one. If I'm not mistaken, General, you said that the referral to the FSL should be immediate. Am I correct, or have I forgotten?
You are correct, the Chairperson. According to the protocol, the exhibits must be submitted within 7 days.
Within 7 days.
Obviously.
Oh, yes.
No, sorry, Commissioner.
Oh, I'm saying I'm looking here at 23 February and a referral on the 19th of April, almost 2 months later.
Yeah, indeed, it's non-compliance with the protocol, Commissioner, but I'm not in a position to comment on the reasons for that.
Yes, all right.
But I think what's important, and that's the point that we want to drive home, is that
There was a referral.
there was indeed a referral, although it has fallen outside the 7-day period, but the exhibits arrived at FSL intact, accepted, analysed, and we received a report.
Except that perhaps the longer the period before the referral, the more the possibility of something going wrong with the exhibits, either them missing, being tampered with, or whatever else.
You are correct, Commissioner. The risk obviously remains that there might be tampering with the exhibits. It's indeed true.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. Then, General, we turn our attention to your paragraph 8 at page 4.
On 30 July 2021, members of the DPCI Durban followed up on information relating to the possible smuggling of narcotics concealed in a shipping containers destined for a major truck assembly plant in Gauteng, Scania. When the container doors were opened, the officers noticed black bags inside the container. As the officers suspected it to be bags of cocaine, they halted the process until LCRC arrived. And this is the matter I spoke to yesterday as well, Commissioners. There was proper crime scene management as the scene was investigated for fingerprints, DNA, and photographed. A duplicate seal was recovered from the container. 29 bags, each wrapped in black tape with carry handles exposed, were recovered. 999 bricks of cocaine were recovered from the bags. The mass of the cocaine was approximately 1,000 kilograms. The narcotics were transported to Maidenwolf SAPS, where they were booked into the SAP-13. It's alleged that the suspected cocaine could not be submitted to FSL as they did not have enough space in their vaults. The exhibits were accepted by FSL in Pretoria on 12 November 2021 after the burglary and theft of the 541 kilograms of cocaine at Port Shepstone.
So is your paragraph suggesting that some good came out of the theft of the cocaine at Port Shepstone? Because then this seizure could be accommodated at FSL in Silverton.
Well, very, very shortly after the burglary was detected, Commissioner, I believe that my counterparts at Forensic Science made the means to accommodate this major seizure, and then it was submitted.
And this was 1,000 kilograms, about twice the size of the Port Shepstone seizure.
That's correct, Commissioners.
That's it. Thank you. You may proceed.
On the 16th of February 2022, members of the DPCI Durban SOCI, in conjunction with Crime Intelligence, followed up on information in relation to a container that was at Manuchar warehouse where 550 bricks or 550 kilograms of suspected cocaine were seized from where they were hidden in the cargo in the container. The container originated from the port of Santos in Brazil. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags. The exhibits were booked in at Umbilu under reference number, and then the exhibits were submitted to FSL in Silverton on the 24th of February 2022. FSL confirmed that the exhibits were cocaine, and it was investigated under a Durban SOCI reference number. Commissioners, this is the other matter where LCRC did not attend the scene. It's not clear why Colonel Sabia did not summons them, but from a study or an analysis of the inquiry, it's clear that there is contemporaneous notes. The exhibits was photographed and then properly sealed in the forensic bags before submission.
But you would, because LCRC wasn't there, you still miss the DNA evidence that you might have been able to pick up,
In-
DNA
in-
and fingerprint.
Indeed, Commissioner Baloy, that's correct.
Yes.
It's a shortcoming.
And the referral to FSL here was relatively quick. The discovery is in February and the referral is in February still. The one just before that, the one involving the truck assembly plant, that's about 4 months.
Indeed, Chairperson.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Baloy. And did you, unless I missed it, did you indicate whether you are aware why LCLC was not called for this particular heist?
It was not established as yet. I have not consulted Colonel Sibiya on that matter, the commissioners.
Thank you. And so Colonel Sibiya, would that be the investigating officer, or why the particular colonel?
He was the senior member at the crime scene and then also the investigator of that matter, commissioners.
Thank you, noted. You then deal with the last matter at your paragraph 10 overleaf at page 6.
On 28 November 2022, where members of the DPCI SOCI attended to a crime scene at R&D Port Operations, where 60 bricks, 60 kilograms of suspected cocaine was seized from where it was hidden in the cargo in the container. The container originated from the port of Santos in Brazil. The crime scene was properly dealt with in terms of crime scene management principles. The exhibits were photographed and sealed in forensic evidence bags, and then the exhibits were booked in at Brighton Beach SAPS under reference number Brighton Beach SAP 13, and the exhibits were submitted to FSL in Silverton, and they confirmed that the exhibits were cocaine. The matter was investigated under a Durban reference number.
And would we be reading your statement correctly, where you conclude on each case by referencing the investigation number, case number, but you say nothing further about that no convictions as yet have been obtained in respect of any of these seizures? Would that be a fair conclusion to make?
That's correct, Commissioner.
I will not inquire into the reasons thereof. I just wanted to establish the status of prosecutions and convictions, if any.
No, there was no convictions or prosecutions in any of these matters, Commissioners.
But you consider them live and ongoing matters?
Well, that's part of the inquiries that I summoned and retrieved from KZN, and there's ongoing investigations, Commissioners.
Thank you. I'm happy with that.
General, is there a standard, for a prescribed standard for where to store seized narcotics in the same way that you have a standard about how to store firearms? You know, it has to be in a particular safe, as I understand, a safe of a particular type. Is there such a standard which would inform, let's say, generals, to use Potchefstroom, that would have informed General Sinona that this is not an appropriate place to store and rather go to, I think you say, let's say Brighton Beach, because it meets the required standard for storing of narcotics? Is there anything like that?
Commissioners, I'm not aware of such a standard, but that's why it's important that, and if a specialized unit need to establish its own SAP 13, I believe that's part of the considerations that the national head would have taken into consideration before approving or disapproving such an application for an SAP 13 at the unit. Inter alia, is it just a strong room, or is it a properly built up walk-in safe with proper doors, for instance, locking systems, alarm systems, not just in the safe but outside, perimeter fencing, beams, etc. All these considerations. So I think that's the important part here, is to during that consideration phase, whether there is additional safeguarding in place or not.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, General. On that point, perhaps for completeness, it might be worth our while to refer to your annexure HFF2. We've dealt with this before, and that is the National Instruction 8 of 2017. Commissioner Baloyi had asked whether there are protocols around dealing with seizures of this nature. I would like to refer you in particular to page 86 under sub 8, and I think that is the main paragraph starts, if I can find my place, I think it's 12. It's 11, it starts at 79, paragraph 11, at page 79 under the heading property, then it deals with various kinds of properties, and specifically at page 86, sub 8, it deals with drugs. And it speaks to a protocol that must be adopted in the storage of the specific drugs as are listed there. And overleaf at Roman 7, which then would be paragraph 11, sub 8, sub B, sub Roman 7, would then deal with the issue of the sealing in forensic evidence bags and have to be marked with the SAP 13 number. You are familiar with the protocol set out here.
Yes, I'm fully au fait with specifically 8B, Commissioners. I think 8A is perhaps the most minimum requirements. I cannot think that it's exhaustive, and that's why I said I'm not aware of a specific protocol in terms of the requirements for an SAP 13 facility. But it just makes sense that there need to be additional safeguards to ensure that criminals cannot get to the actual exhibits that's placed in a walk-in safe.
Thank you. I just wanted you perhaps to comment on that as well, to add to the response you gave to Commissioner Baloyi. We then I think we are now at your paragraph 11.
That's correct.
Of your statement at page 6. If you can then take the commissioners through that.
From the aforementioned, I was able to ascertain that unlike the June 2021 seizure, 11.1, LCRC was called to the scene to process the crime scene in respect of all the other seizures, except for the second Polonia vessel seizure and the Manuchar seizure, as I explained earlier. All the exhibits were sealed at the crime scene. No samples from the exhibits were submitted to FSL whilst the exhibits were still in storage. There is no record that the sealed evidence bags were opened at any time before all the exhibits were submitted to FSL. And then all the bulk exhibits were submitted to FSL in Silverton, except for the three exceptions that I've highlighted.
Just 2 seconds, General.
just to clarify, at 11.3, you say no samples from the exhibits were submitted to FSL whilst the exhibits were still in storage. So the booking, I thought the evidence we had involved that some 7 bricks were taken out supposedly for...
Commissioners, this referred just to the cases that
I
I've
see, you're not
explained here
speaking
now.
to Port Shepstone in
It does
particular.
not relate
Okay,
to the Port Shepstone matter where samples were taken
okay, thank you.
and then submitted to FSL
Okay, thank you
in
for clarifying.
Amanzimtoti.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner. You may proceed, General.
And that's the end of this statement, Commissioners.
Is there anything you would like to add to your supplementary statement before we turn our attention back to your conclusion in your main statement?
No, Commissioners.
Unless there are questions on the further questions on the supplementary statement, Commissioners, I would invite General Flynn to go back to his original statement, and at paragraph 25, you then deal with the conclusion.
Page 25, paragraph
25.
69.
Paragraph 69, page 25.
Thank you, Commissioners. The persistence of drug trafficking at an organized crime level is often facilitated by the complexity of modern supply chains and the involvement of officials who exploit positions of trust within logistics, border control, law enforcement, or commercial processes. Trafficking networks or syndicates are deliberately structured, which makes detection more difficult. Efforts to counter this form of organized crime require coordinated intelligence-driven action across multiple agencies and, importantly, embracing technology. While enforcement efforts continue to disrupt operations, bringing the perpetrators to account is difficult due to the clandestine nature of the crime and the involvement of law enforcement officials and border control. In my opinion, the cocaine seized in 2021 should never have been stored in Port Shepstone. The crime scene management failings compromised the integrity of the investigation, and the subsequent theft of the cocaine was severely compromised our ability to find the traffickers. I trust that my evidence will be of assistance to the Commission.
Thank you, General. Before I turn to the commissioners, are there any other comments you'd like to make, having then read out your conclusion?
No, Commissioners.
Chair and commissioners, yes, please.
General, what I'm going to ask you is unrelated to your testimony, but I hope you will be able to comment on it. What protocols exist with regard to the conduct of polygraph tests, or what are colloquially referred to as lie detector tests? What protocols exist, and when is that usually or ordinarily done, and who gets subjected to it?
Commissioners, in terms of our legislation, I believe it's section 17E, speaks to integrity testing. And as part of that process, polygraph tests are also part of the machinery that is deployed to determine deception, or whether individuals were perhaps complicit in the commissioning or taking part in any offense. And then it is upon the national head to then direct who needs to be exposed to that process. So then a list is then submitted to the identified officers, who then needs to report for such polygraph testing.
And do you have any idea as to what the determinant factors are to decide on who should be subjected to the test?
I believe the merits of each matter, Commissioner, will determine whether an individual or individuals be exposed to the process. So I don't think there's hard and fast rules associated to those decisions. It will be dependent on the specific facts that such a decision will be taken.
I was avoiding specificity so as to get an idea of the generally applicable prescripts, but perhaps I should be specific now. The facts here are that General Sinona was involved in the decision to take the drugs, the cocaine, to Port Shepstone, and in the end he kept the key. I'm just trying to establish in my own mind whether he ought not to have been subjected to a polygraph test. I'm asking this in the context of the fact that there were polygraph tests here. And I assume that everybody who was involved in all of this saga was subjected to such tests, but he was not. Ought he have been subjected to the test, in your view?
In my opinion, Commissioner, indeed, he was supposed to be exposed to the process, as he played an active role in the Port Shepstone matter. It's not as if he was just the provincial head sitting at the distance. He was privy to the activities. He visited the Port Shepstone offices shortly after the seizure and took possession of the key. That's active participation. It's not as if he was at the distance and that he was not related to this matter. So it's my strong opinion that he was supposed to be exposed to the process.
Thank you, General.
General, I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Baloy's question and the answer you gave, more for clarification than anything else. Were 7 bricks ever taken from Port Shepstone to the FSL lab for testing?
No.
They were not?
It was never submitted, Commissioners. It was, apparently there was a request for 7 bricks of cocaine to be submitted, but I clarified that point in terms of the process that the investigators would have followed, but it was only the samples that the investigators obtained on the second day when they went back on the 24th.
Yeah.
So obviously opening the exhibits, obtaining that samples, sealing it, submitting it to FSL, that was the only samples that was submitted, Commissioners.
So the 7 bricks were never taken?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct, Commissioners.
Thank you.
General, we see here Warrant Officer Mpangase is quite the active person with this inquiry. If this were an investigation, I would have assumed he was the investigating officer. Does it mean he was in charge of the inquiry? Because remember we start off, you said yesterday that Colonel Jacob was the person in charge of the operation. And then he went off. Then you have Mpangase, who seems to be very busy here. Would he have been, therefore, the owner of this inquiry?
Indeed, the owner of the inquiry, Commissioner Baloy, in the sense that he's the investigating officer.
Okay.
But in terms of command and control, the responsibilities of the team leader, which will obviously be a captain or at the level of lieutenant colonel, the unit commander, the provincial commander, as well as the provincial head, under these circumstances where it's a major drug seizure, cannot be wiped out. They've got certain responsibilities in terms of inspections and overseeing the investigation, obviously from a higher level. But to ensure that the investigation is properly conducted, all the possible leads are followed up, exhibits are submitted to FSL in time, or then assist if there's blockages in all these processes to ensure that there's a smooth transition of the exhibits from the SAP 13 facility or wherever it was kept to the Forensic Science Laboratory.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Chair. Unless there are no further questions, if there are no further questions for General Flynn, that is the testimony of General Flynn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, General. You are excused, but perhaps you should wait for the formal adjournment.
Yes, indeed, Chair. Insofar as the next step is concerned, General Flynn will then be excused, which means we finish at lunch. The next witness, unfortunately, is one who has to travel into Gauteng, and today is his travel date to Gauteng, and can only be presented tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning.
Is that because he could not travel earlier?
The arrangements that had been made already had been for him to travel today, to be present at 9:30 tomorrow morning. In light of the fact that there is no threat that he may overrun, we thought it was appropriate to retain the arrangements as were made to cater both for his overnight stay in Johannesburg and travels, and to be presented in the normal hours tomorrow. So we request that perhaps with your leave, we stand down at this juncture to 9:30 when we start with a new witness.
Thank you, Ms. Sillo. Let us adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Chair.